Hello and welcome. Today we're going to be going through how to build the Active Directory sets that I've been describing in the attack paths, but instead of building them on VMware ESXi, as I know that's not widely accessible for everyone, I've had a couple of requests or comments around being able to do this with VirtualBox. So I have done this with VirtualBox a couple of times, specifically when I needed to run it all on one machine. So I can say that you want to make sure you have a nice beefy machine, and by beefy I mean lots of CPU and lots of memory specifically. Otherwise, you're going to find that this may be performance restrictive. You may find that the machines run too slow for it to be valuable for you. So I will say that's the little caveat to this setup, is that your mileage may vary depending upon what type of hardware you're running it on. I myself have run this on a MacBook, and actually if we bring it up I will share. This is the MacBook and Mac OS specifically that I'm running this on, to give you an idea as far as the amount of memory, 32 gigs and an i9, old 2019 version, so not the newest gen by any means, and I'm also running an older build of Mac OS. So all that being said, let's go ahead and open up VirtualBox and get this kicked off. We'll start with actually importing. And in this case, I'll even show how to get Kali loaded up on here, since we're going to have a number of things that we need to configure, such as this outside network and the inside network. And in this case, this is an older diagram. This would be a more accurate representation. So I would say you could probably bypass and not do the OpenVPN. I will show you how to do this both ways, but I do say that, again, if you're going to run this all on one machine in VirtualBox, maybe skip the OpenVPN piece or practice this separately than trying to run all of these machines concurrently. Not that OpenVPN really needs a lot. So I'll show you how to build it both ways. Since that's the more intensive way, let's start with the easier way, or the smaller build, which would be if we attach Kali directly to the outside interface, or directly to the outside subnet. So that being said, let's go and download the latest version of Kali. Here you can see we have different types of ways of getting it. You can just go to kali.org/get-kali, and then I typically will go to virtual machines in this case, and here you'll see they already have a pre-built VirtualBox, about 2.9 gigs, so you can download it directly. You can download the torrent, but in either case, we're going to grab that, again, 64-bit version, and we'll get that. Well, we'll wait for it to finish downloading, and then we'll jump forward. We'll fast forward. And we are fast forwarded and complete. So Kali has finished downloading. We're going to go ahead and extract it. And when it's done, you will find that you're left with, in this case here, you can see the Kali image as the VBox and VDI files. So from here, you should be able to, I believe, either double click, or in this case I'll say import, and choose a virtual appliance. Oh, actually I take that back. Let's just go ahead and double click it. And sure enough, that's the easiest way. So just double click the .vbox file, and that will import it. Here you can go ahead and click on the settings, and let's go ahead and just double check. So we're giving it 2 gigs of memory. I would bump this up to 4 gigs or 4096 megs. And the rest of this seems fine. Processor, 2 CPUs, that's fine. And then for network, we're going to go ahead and change this. So it has adapter 1, and we're going to go ahead and keep this connected to the outside network. NAT is perfectly fine because we want this to be able to download our payloads, get access to the internet for all of the things that we need to do. But network adapter 2, we're going to turn this on, and we'll go ahead and turn this on to a internal network. And then we can call it whatever we want to call it. You'll see, looks like INTNet's the default it came out with. In this case, we could call it, let's say OSCP-outside is what I'm going to call it, because it's going to be that outside subnet. And then we can say OK and power that on. And upon first logon, go ahead and get logged in. You'll see that it loads up. Typically, I will go ahead and double check to make sure that the VM tools, OpenVM tools, is installed. Or I'll attempt to install it just in case. But I believe it is pre-built with the VBox image that we downloaded. And let's go ahead and set our network settings as well. So if we click over here on the circle arrow, because it's trying to get out to the internet, and let's go ahead and say wired connection 2. Oh. I correct myself. Right click on it and say edit connections. And then in here, it'll bring up our connections. You'll see wired connection 1 is that one we had doing NAT connected to the internet. So that one is most likely working just fine. But wired connection number 2 is the one that doesn't go anywhere. So wired connection 2, we're going to go ahead and go to IPv4, manual, and add, we're going to call this 10, what was it? Oh, sorry, 192.168.100. So 192.168.100.10, mask 24, and there is no gateway. Go ahead and hit save and close. And then let's go ahead and open up terminal. And you can type ifconfig. And here we can see our 10.0.2.15. It looks like is our NATed interface that gets out to the internet. And our 192.168.100.10 is our second interface. And if we type route, we can see default is yes, getting out through the 10.0.2.2. So this is good to go for our Kali machine. I'll go ahead and shut this down just for the sake of, let's jump over to now building out MS01. So for this one, we're not going to have a pre-built image. Oops, we're not going to start that. We're going to go ahead and so we'll go up here to tools. Next, we're going to start by building our Windows machines. So MS01, MS02, and DC01. Let's go ahead and just say new. And we'll call this one MS01. I'm not going to do the unattended install, but you definitely can. And then I'll just say hardware. We want to give it 4 gigs, so 4096 megabytes, and 2 CPUs. Hard drive space, 50 gigs is fine. Don't need anything special there. Now for MS01, we're actually going to need to tweak a couple things. So settings and network. So the first adapter we're going to change and set it to internal network and OSCP outside. Again, that's going to match this network. Then the second adapter, we can say enable network adapter, internal network, and this will be OSCP inside. So this is going to be attached to the inside subnet. And we can go ahead and say OK. And the other thing we want to do is we can go to settings, and I'll go down here to the CD drive, and I'll click on the disk icon, and then I'll pick out the Windows 10 image, in this case build 1909, that I want to use, and go ahead and say save. And then I'm going to go ahead and create MS02. So we'll go back up to Tools, say New, call this one MS02, Hardware, give it 4 gigs, and 2 CPUs, and say Finish. And then for this one, we'll go to Settings, Network Adapter, set it to Internal Network, and yep, OSCP inside, say OK. And then for, and I forgot the ISO image, so we'll go back here to Settings, Storage, CD drive, click on that, and I'm going to go and pick Windows 10 and say OK. And then last but not least is DC01. So let's go ahead and go back to Tools, New, DC01. In this case, it's not going to be Windows 10. It's going to be, say, 2019 64-bit, hardware, 4096, 2 CPUs, and 50 gigs is fine. And settings, network, internal network, OSCP inside, and storage, CD drive. Click on the disk, and in this case I have a server eval build for 2019, I believe, that we're going to use, and click OK. At this point we're ready to power these bad boys up. So this isn't going to be anything different than what you've seen before. You can just double click it, start. I'll go full screen. I'm going to go ahead and start walking through, and again I chose not to do the unattended install because I wanted to be painful and go through, but I also know exactly what settings are going to be used and how it's set up, so you can pick the unattended install and pre-fill out a lot of the same settings if you want. Again, this is also the same flow that you would see in the other build videos for my AD attack paths. I'm just going to go ahead and get this started, and I'm not going to show you what it looks like for the other ones because again, this is very repetitive, but I just want to show you can do this all the same exact way on VirtualBox as what you can do on ESXi that I have in the other videos, now that you've got these set up with exactly the right settings and the right network adapter settings. The other big difference is after you install these, which I'll show, then you're going to want to install the or not the OpenVM tools, but the VirtualBox VM tools so that you can get full capability to copy and paste back and forth. Alright, so if we check in on MS01, it finished installing. So I do want to call out, this is one, slight difference from doing it on VMware. In this case, VirtualBox will go up here to Devices, Insert Guest Editions CD Image. It's basically the VMware tools or the equivalent thereof. Then I'll go to this PC, double click on the Guest Editions, or actually right click on it. Oh, actually that's surprising. It doesn't have an auto run. Here's the auto run. Let's see what auto run says. Auto run. What would you normally do? You would normally run vbox windows editions.exe. Okay, we can do that too. Say yes, and next, and install, and that will give us a lot more functionality and stability and compatibility with our host operating system. right, and we'll go ahead and say reboot now. And unlike the VMware tools, I would do this with VirtualBox first before I start changing the host name, the IP address, or anything else. Get the VirtualBox guest editions installed first and reboot, then start making all of the customizations for the attack path that you want. Alright, so now that you've seen it with MS01, actually, you know what, I'll show the network settings as well, just because this one has both interfaces. It's dual homed, right? It's bridging our outside and inside subnets. So let's just make sure our interfaces show up properly. So right click on the globe, say open network and internet settings. Oh, let's blow this up. Right click on the desktop, display settings. Let's make this bigger. Let's go up to, alright, keep that. Keep that 100%, that's fine. And so let's go ahead, open network internet, change adapter options. There's our two interfaces, sure enough. Let's go ahead and right click the first one, say properties, uncheck IPv6, open up IPv4. And this is going to be our 192.168.100. 201. No gateway, no DNS. Go ahead and click OK, OK. Let's go to number 2. Similarly, this one's going to be 10.10.1.201. 20/24, so 255.255.255.0. No gateway, but the DNS is going to be 10.10.1.200, the DC01. Okay, and okay. And just to confirm we didn't put these on the wrong ones, I'm going to go ahead and run Kali. Let's let it get kicked into high gear, and then we'll be able to ping back and forth since we already set up the Kali IP interface settings earlier. And go ahead and rinse and repeat this with MS02 and DC01. Again, setting their IP addresses accordingly and following along after you do the guest editions install, just like I am on the other attack paths as far as any customizations. Alright, so Kali is up and running. Let's go ahead and run over here to Windows, MS01. Oops, cancel. Let's not do that. Let's just open up good old command prompt. ipconfig, confirm our addresses, ping 192.168.100.10, and sure enough, we can hit our Kali machine. So we know that our connectivity is good. Our IP addresses are set correctly for the right interfaces. This one's OSCP outside. This one's OSCP inside. As mentioned, go ahead and go through and finish installing MS02 and DC01. I believe everything else is going to be standard for configurations, and you can pick up where I walk through things with installing on the attack path setups. So now we're getting to the bonus material. We're going to take what we had built with Kali being directly attached to the outside. We're going to add a layer of complexity and make this now to where Kali is going to be connecting to an OpenVPN server, and the OpenVPN server is going to be the bridge to the outside subnet. Much more realistic to what you would expect for the OSCP exam. So the first thing we're going to need to do is modify our Kali box and go ahead and make sure it's shut off. Go to settings, network adapters, and we should be able to leave the first one with NAT because that one's going to be essentially natting out to our outside interface. The second interface, though, instead of being attached to the outside, we're going to disable it. So we only have one network interface now. You could also, and we may have to come back to this, change it from NAT to being bridged. That would also should work for what we're going to do. Now what we're going to do though is we're going to add a new call it OpenVPN, and it's going to be a Linux Ubuntu 64-bit 22, I believe 2204 Jammy Jellyfish. And you could do unattended install, but again, I'm going to be more granular. 2 gigs of memory is fine. 1 CPU should be fine. Ooh, I'll let it have 2 CPUs. Go ahead and hit finish, and then we'll hit settings. Go to storage, the CD drive, and I'm going to load the Ubuntu 2204.3 ISO image. And we're going to go to network, and we're going to change this from NAT to bridged. And I'm going to bridge it, in this case, to my Wi-Fi adapter, because that's the big reason here is because this is going to be the interface that we're having Kali go and hit. So it needs to have its own IP address. It can't be NATed. So that's why we're in a bridge. Bridging says bridge it over and let it get its own address. Don't share the IP address with the host. Let's start things up. The install for this is not going to be much different other than the other install guides that I've done for deploying. I say other guides. Really, it was just attack path number 2 where I finally showed how to build out the OpenVPN server. I'll show you it on here as well, just so that you have the VirtualBox interpretation, but realistically it's very, very similar. The only thing that's going to be different is actually it's just the IP address for the bridge adapter. And then I guess I did fumble. What I should have done is enabled the second network adapter. So let's go ahead and shut this down. I think I messed that one up. Yeah, there's only one. So go back over here. I'm just going to right click and say power off. Settings. Got ahead of myself. Second network adapter is going to be the internal network, and this is going to be the OSCP outside, right? We need to have that second interface. So Kali is going to attach to the first adapter that's bridged, and then it's going to use that to get access to the outside subnet. Now we can start it up. My mistake. Okay, and it looks like it is coming up. So again, just continue without updating. English for me, Ubuntu server. Here's where I'm going to make a change, right? So the first interface looks like it got a 10.1.2.203, which is that bridged one. Your IP address will obviously be different. This one though, we're going to change, and this will be the same. This is going to be the OSCP outside subnet. So the 192.168.100. This one right here. So we're going to go here to edit IPv4, manual 192.168.100/0/24, 192.168.100.199. No gateway, no name servers, no DNS. And we'll continue without network. Done. Let the mirror location testing occur. It should succeed because again the first interface is bridged, the 10.1.2.203 in my case, and we pass, and done, and continue. Oh, in this case I'm just gonna have the username OSCP. We can call it the server name OSCP. We'll just call it OpenVPN, and username OSCP. And my password is super secret, and continue. Sure, let's install OpenSSH, and done. And just go ahead and let that finish installing, and we'll come back to it when it is finished. Actually, while it's installing, we can go ahead and run back over to our Kali machine, since we changed the network settings on it earlier. And we added the second network adapter, or I should say, I take that back actually. We did not. We don't need to make any changes to the Kali machine. all we did was remove the second interface. So in this case, I'm just going to get started up and ready to go. Okay, and it looks like it finished, so we'll go ahead and say reboot now. While it's doing that, we're going to go ahead and open up our link here. So this is the OpenVPN Access Server Guide. Here's the URL. Definitely can Google this. And I would go down to the Ubuntu setup since that's what we're installing on. Scroll down to installation instructions for Ubuntu. And it will take you to a login. Mine's already cached, so it auto-logged me in based on the cached token. And I'll go to Linux software package Ubuntu LTS. Oh, look, that's most frequently chosen. And here are the commands that we're going to run to get OpenVPN installed on here. All right, looks like we're at the login screen, and oh, there's my SSH keys. Okay, so this looks like we're good to go. And here, again, if we do the IP -4 AD for address, it's going to show I have a loopback address, of course, and then a 10.1.2.203. That is my IP address that's for my bridged interface. Yours is going to be different. Write down or take note of what that address is. That's going to be the one that is your target for your Kali machine for OpenVPN. And then the third interface, the 192.168.100.199, is of course the interface that's on the outside subnet for the OSCP Active Directory set. So that's the one that's going to allow us access to MS01. So with that being said, what I'm going to do is, since we installed OpenSSH, I'm just going to go ahead and use my Kali box and open up my terminal, maybe. And I'm just going to go ahead and say SSH OSCP at 10, what was it? 10.1.2.203. And yes. And type in my super secret password, and sure enough, there we go. Now I have SSH access and I've confirmed connectivity, and I'm just going to go ahead and copy and paste these install commands now. So we'll say paste clipboard. Actually, I guess we'll do sudo su. Then we'll paste clipboard. Okay, and then we'll grab the next one. Paste clipboard, and we've updated that certificate, and we'll go ahead and take the next command and paste that in. Echoes it to our apt repository, and then now we'll go ahead and install OpenVPN. And again, this is the same walkthrough, same back and forth that you would be doing that I've outlined in the Active Directory set 2 setup. We're just doing it on VirtualBox, that's all. So at this point, while that's installing, I'm going to go ahead and go back over here and bring up VirtualBox. And let's go ahead and kick off MS01 so we can test our connectivity all the way through once we're ready. Okay, and once it finishes, don't make the mistake that I've made a few times and close your session out without saving this password. This is your temporary or dynamically set automatically generated password. So yours is going to be different, but write this down, copy it real quick. I'm going to say copy selection, and let's go ahead and open up our admin console here. So in this case, it's my 10.12203, but on port 943, and there's a /admin. So we can go ahead and say open link. And yes, I accept the risk. And we'll say OpenVPN and paste in that super secret tough password that we saw there. I'm not going to save it because I'm going to immediately change it. So again, these are the same actions I do in the number 2 setup, but I'll go here first to user management, user permissions, change the OpenVPN password to something that is easier to remember. And then go ahead and go down to the bottom and save. And then update running server. And then let's go ahead and do a new username, call it OSCP. And I'm going to say allow auto logon, click on the more settings, and I'm going to scroll down and set the password to OSCP as well. And then hit save and update running server. And now I'm going to go over here to config VPN settings, and I'm going to change the network address for the dynamic IP to 172.16.10.0/24. You can set it to whatever you like. It shouldn't really matter because I'm actually going to static out the address that's assigned to the OSCP user, so that way it matches up with what we have here on the diagram, that 172.16.11.11. So let's use the static IP network as 172.16.11.0/24. The group default address is going to be the same as my dynamic, so I'll change this to 172.16.10.0/24. And then down here, routing, yes with routing. The only subnet that the VPN users need access to is the 192.168.100. Again, the OSCP outside. And allow access, let's see. Should client internet traffic be routed? No. We want a split tunnel VPN. And then do not alter client's DNS server settings. Yes, we do not want to alter the client's DNS settings. That should do it for these settings. We'll go ahead and hit save, update running server, and then now that we've got the static subnet there defined as the 172.16.11, I'll copy that, go back to user management, user permissions, the OSCP user, more settings, and then down here I'll define the static address, and I will say you get 11.11. Save settings, update running server, and that's ready to test. So now we'll go ahead and I'll go back to my command prompt here. You'll notice that the second link, we can right click that, say open link. It's the same address, the 10.12203.943. It's just we're not doing /admin. So if I come back here and just go to the IP, it'll take me to the user login. So we'll use the OSCP user. And then it says, okay, here's your profiles. I'm going to download the auto login profile. There it is. And then let's just jump in and test it. Let's see. Let's get crazy. So I will say actions. Let's do split vertically. And drag this over, and then I'll say let's change the download directory. Let's do a sudo openvpn *.openvpn, so whatever the file is, I don't care. And sure enough, yes, we got our 172.16.11.11 address, and we can also see that we have our 192.168.0 subnet added to our route table. So this looks good. The one thing we do need to do though is, because the MS01 server is running a firewall, we need to actually test from there. So let's go over to MS01 that we'd started up earlier. Let's go ahead and open up a administrative command prompt. So cmd run as admin. So in here, we're going to type in route print, and you'll notice that we do not have the ability to get to the 172.16.11 subnet. So we need to do route add 172.16.11.0 mask 255.255.255.0. The gateway is 192.168.100.199. We'll say metric 1 and /p for persistence so that the route persists. We'll say route print again, and here we can see persistent routes there. So now do CLS. Let's do ping 192.168.100.199. Make sure we can actually hit the OpenVPN server. Sure enough, we can. And moment of truth, ping 172.16.11.11. Sure enough, we can hit our Kali machine VPN address. So at this point, connectivity is good. We've got Kali, OpenVPN, we've got it VPN'd in. Kali is assigned to 172.16.11.11 address, and it can then go ahead and hit the MS01 machine for attack. So there's your bonus material. I hope you're able to make the most out of it. Again, mileage may vary based upon your resources. You can drop these down to 2 gigs of memory apiece, even 1 gig on the OpenVPN server. They don't need a whole lot, but I would probably stick with 4 gigs if you can on the Kali machine, and at least 2 gigs, maybe 4 gigs if you can on DC01. But I hope you have fun. I hope this helps and answers the questions on how to do this with VirtualBox.